And so, hi, Zaki. Hi again.
Hey.
It's a pleasure to connect with you again. Like our last interview was very much a while ago. I think it was like a year ago, maybe.
Okay.
Still Faguarda the wallet. And now it's great to have you here joining Swapzone team. We're talking about Cosmos and what changed. I will put the link to our previous interview below so our guys can catch up on what has been happening before. But so probably we'll start with a little bit of an introduction. So today I'm joined by Zaki Manian, who will talk about Cosmos, about Atom, about how everything has been developing, and about some general notions of blockchain space, maybe. And
Sure.
I would love you to introduce yourself a little bit as well.
Hi, I'm Zaki Manian. I work on the Cosmos project and various other blockchain things. I work with, I'm a co-founder of a company called Occlusion. We run infrastructure for a variety of different blockchain things. The Cosmos Hub, the diversified DEX, the Terra blockchain, and an increasing number of other things. But yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, we'll start with a little bit of like personal historical questions, kind of, if you don't mind. And the first one will be, how did you actually start in the cryptocurrency space? Did something particularly interesting get you in? When was that? And what are the things that still keep you going here?
Sure. What got me into the cryptocurrency space? So before I worked on cryptocurrencies, I was actually working in I was working in biotechnology, medical diagnostic testing, scientific instrumentation, all stuff that is terribly relevant in this COVID pandemic times. But also the pandemic has been a real reminder of why I sort of started to get more interested in cryptocurrencies. One is that just largely the technology in the last, I left that space about 10 years ago. And so that sort of brought me to distributed systems, formal verification, cryptography, all these things I've been interested in for about a decade now. And so that's sort of been my intro into the blockchain. But like what keeps me going, honestly, is in this space is that we are starting to get into the blockchain space has been making genuine progress. And we are getting towards a world where there's an infrastructure for actually building things that I think will be useful for ordinary people. And I think the projects that I've been spending time with and working on, I do see those glimmers of hope, both, more open and reliable financial infrastructure, a better system for social coordination and sort of, human cooperation. And I see those pieces starting to come together, and I think that's what excites me.
Okay, this is really cool. So you're very much interested in this like social aspect and like interconnectedness of things in the blockchain space as far as I get.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is most exciting to me about blockchains is the ability to sort of uh, experiment with different social structures and stuff like that. Like, one of the things that I think has been most exciting about what's been happening with Atoms and Cosmos this year is that we've very much completely decentralized development. And at the same time, we're taking on this massive project, which we call the Stargate upgrade, through this decentralized development process. And it's challenging. It definitely poses some pretty significant challenges, but it poses some pretty significant challenges. But like that's what makes this interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. So now we're slowly moving into the project related things. And obviously on our platform, on Swapzone, we support Atom, we support Cosmos. So we try to kind of keep in touch with everything that's been going on with the development and stuff. But how would you describe what Cosmos does right now with decentralization, with new things going on there?
Yeah, I mean, so a year ago, we launched the Cosmos Hub, which was one of many instances of software built on top of the Cosmos SDK. we continue to see, there has been ongoing widespread embrace of the development stack that Cosmos has built. The Tendermint consensus engine, the Cosmos SDK. You have projects like Binance and Crypto.com that also use elements of the stack. And we continue to see like a broadening of that. What the Cosmos SDK, what was unique about the launch of the Cosmos Hub at the time was we really wanted to demonstrate that the launch of a fully decentralized from the beginning proof of stake blockchain was possible. And we continue to be, I think, really unique among all of the projects that we launched in this way, that the Cosmos Hub sort of genuinely rose out of a community of interested people who wanted to use the software to run a network together. But, all of these pieces with the Cosmos SDK, like there's a bunch of obvious missing pieces. One was, the entire vision of Cosmos was to have an internet of blockchains, which means that not only do you want to have these individual blockchains built on top of Tendermint and the Cosmos SDK, but you want to connect them all together. And this is a protocol called IBC. So we just finished over the summer so among other trends that we started the trend of doing incentivized testnets. So we did the first incentivized testnet, Game of Stakes, and we followed that up this summer with Game of Zones, which was another incentivized testnet demonstrating the IBC technology. And so our experience with that, that was extremely positive. We were able to demonstrate really everything that we were hoping for in terms of Game of Zones. I really encourage anyone to go to goz.cosmosnetwork.dev to see kind of the numerous contributions and participation from all the players during Game of Zones. So we finish off Game of Zones, and the development, this like sort of new, multi-entity development structure that we have spun up over the course of the last, since February, has been hard at work, sort of readying for an upgrade of the Cosmos Hub that will bring IBC to the community. But in order to get there, we've realized that we need to make some changes that are going to be disruptive to the ecosystem. It's going to be disruptive to, lots and lots of different projects have integrated with the Cosmos Hub and Atoms like you guys. And so Stargate is going to be a more disruptive upgrade than has been in the past with Cosmos, and it will be in the future. And one of the things that I'm really I've been really focused on is just how do we manage this upgrade process smoothly. That's the current thing that I'm working on. I think the next thing after this is, and once the Stargate upgrade becomes live and we get through the Stargate process, the sort of core set of deliverables that were defined in the Cosmos white paper and that we originally, the original Cosmos fundraiser back in 2017 are effectively complete. And now we enter this sort of new sort of community driven development era that is spinning up right now. And things that are sort of top of mind there are really giving Atoms a unique and important role in this internet of blockchains that is, so we're looking into things like liquid staking with Anchor, which is a collaboration between another Cosmos SDK chain, the Terra blockchain and the Cosmos chain, and also Polkadot, to sort of evolve the financial infrastructure around proof of stake, which is, there's still a lot of work to be done there. We sort of have launched like sort of the MVP proof of stake system, but there's still clearly a lot of opportunity to innovate. We are looking at things like being able to secure the larger Cosmos ecosystem with Atoms. We have the Cosmos Hub funded through its on-chain treasury, the first project to actually bring new technology to the Cosmos Hub. This is called CosmWasm, whiich will bring WebAssembly, smart contracts, programmability to the Cosmos Hub. And we think that's going to be part of the sort of key infrastructure for sort of allowing atoms to play a more important role in the Cosmos ecosystem.
No, this is great because like actually I was going to ask, my next question was about atoms and like how exactly they're going to evolve and what will be the goals, but you kind of already answered it. So I probably will ask another one, which is about community, because you say that there's a lot of things based on decentralization, on community involvement, on community development, which is totally amazing. But how do you keep the community so active? So what is the magic trick of Cosmos to like make this like super profound system working with the community like action?
So, I mean, a number of things that I think have been really successful, you know, and I think, you know, any successful blockchain project needs to go through this. You know, typically you start out with, you know, a small group of people who have a vision and some technology. They've been building this stuff. As the team scales, it sort of starts to look more like a traditional software startup company. You know, you have, you know, 20, 30 developers working typically under a single organization. The next phase in the evolution of any project is when you move from that single organization structure where everybody has like works for one common entity or company and has like sort of a hierarchical reporting structure, to a structure in which there are a whole bunch of different entities. They have a whole bunch of different business relationships with each other, but they're all working collaboratively towards a goal. And that's really been the transformation that Cosmos has been through over the last 6 months. And so, you know, most of our, like essentially all development discussion at this point is mostly happening in a public Discord. So, you know, the Cosmos Discord, which is sort of run by members of the community, but, you know, essentially all development in the Cosmos ecosystem is taking place there and on GitHub, obviously. So, you know, that is a very open and accessible process. You know, the other thing that is, you know, well, so the IBC development process was sort of very community driven from the beginning, with multiple entities working together who have multiple goals and visions for what they want to have with IBC. We've now really transitioned all of the development, especially because, you know, we are now at this point where you know, the initial vision with the Cosmos white paper is complete. And, you know, now sort of everyone in the ecosystem is a stakeholder in trying to shape the future development of Cosmos. And so, yeah, I think one of the biggest successes and things I'm most proud of this year is the fact that we do have this sort of open community-oriented process and open community-oriented governance, and via various community channels, on-chain governance, the on-chain treasury, we are all shaping the future of Atoms and the Hub together. And I don't think that there are very many other projects that are remotely at the level of ability for someone to come in from, you know, anywhere with a vision, idea, and start actually shaping the technical, economic direction of Cosmos, which is really just like sort of at this point, you know, a community-owned thing.
So this is usually some community, this like development, community decisions and community governance is a great thing, but how do you reach a consensus on where the project is going to go in like long run, not at the moment?
What I would say is, well, I mean, the reality of this is that there is, you know, so this goes back to what I think is like my basic philosophy around decentralization, which is, if there was no politics, there would be no need for decentralization. If everyone agreed with each other and everyone had complete unanimity about what direction to go in, we wouldn't need to decentralize anything. We'd all run everything on one server, and the admin of the server would control the future direction, and we would all agree. It would be great.
Yeah, true.
The reason why we build decentralized systems is because we want there to be different centers of power, different visions, and we want those things to be to a certain, like there's a benefit to these things being to a certain extent in conflict with each other. And so I certainly have my vision for the future of Cosmos. There are stakeholders. My vision doesn't inherently get to dominate. But I think that there's a very broad group of people who realize that, you know, our best strategy for success is to continue to work together, to kind of integrate each other's views, visions, processes together, and try and find models of cooperating. And so we don't have all the answers, obviously, but I do think, you know, we're at a state that is like effective, and progress is being made. And I think that's the best you can do.
Certainly with the community, it seems like it. So decentralization is something very kind of, it is manageable, but it can be a pretty complex space. But also, what do you think are the main goals for like future development of both Atom and Cosmos? Like if you had to say like 5 goals, for example, that are currently already like considered and already working towards it. So what can we expect in like the nearest future?
Okay, so obviously the Stargate upgrade, which will sort of happen in August, September timeframe, and the launch of IBC represent like major milestones for the Cosmos Hub. I would say that in my mind, like I'd say there's like basically 3 general directions that the Cosmos Hub sort of general, sort of top level work streams for the Cosmos Hub community. But this is just my point of view, and I'm mostly just trying to sell the rest of, you know, the wider Cosmos community at this point on this point of view, which is we're not yet at, you know, universal. So one area is you know, now that IBC will be live, the question is, how do you make Atoms and the hub sort of a true hub of the interchain economy? How do you make it so the Cosmos Hub is a place you can go to connect to the most interesting assets and the best opportunities for you know, for doing interesting things with those assets, DeFi, etc. So how do you make progress there? The second piece is sort of the economic optimization of Atoms. There's still a lot of, I think, work. You know, we launched with uneconomic system, you know, variable inflation rates, staking targets, etc. For the Cosmos Hub. But, you know, should economic parameters of Atoms be tweaked? You know, ideas that I think have a lot of merit are, for instance, moving to a fixed issuance in terms of the number of atoms per year rather than a percentage-based issuance of the number of atoms per year. So there's economic optimization. And then I think the third thing is really is sort of making Atoms the sort of collateral or and enforcement security sort of governance mechanism of as much of the interchain as possible. And so, and that work is sort of happening, we call it shared security, cross-chain validation. There's really interesting innovation happening with a project called Lazy Ledger, which is part of the Cosmos ecosystem. So I kind of view these as like sort of the 3 sort of high order bits for Atoms. And like sort of the key elements of sort of the post-Stargate roadmap.
What do you think will be the hardest of these points to achieve?
I think that what we want, you know, one of the things that like, I'll say 2 things. One of these things is the piece of, so 2 pieces. Like one of the things that we've been best at Cosmos is, while we have a very ambitious vision, we do incremental deliverables along the way. So we're constantly building software that, you know, people can and do use along the way to you know, this vision. And so every one of these pieces of things that I've talked about, there's, you know, can be broken into incremental milestones that like we can make progress against. The biggest challenge, like when you asked that question, what popped into my mind is actually just every one of those things is going to require careful work with the community and on-chain governance to define a coherent Cosmos Hub to actually update and execute on moving to that next step. And I would say so far, in the on-chain governance, a lot of the more successful initiatives have been, I've personally spearheaded them, but it's a lot of work. And in order to deliver on all three of these directions simultaneously, we need to figure out a way of sort of sharing that labor. We need to start having a wider sort of participation in on-chain governance and pushing these initiatives forward.
Also, I was going to ask about scalability, because one of the main descriptions of Cosmos generally is that it's scalable. And so how do you achieve it at the moment, and how does it correlate with everything that's happening right now, and how it's going to be like spread?
I think there's a couple of things that are sort of unique about Cosmos. One is we are one of the only projects in this entire ecosystem that is defining an approach to scalability that is not sharding. The vast and overwhelming majority of projects that are sort of pursuing some form of scalable proof of stake are pursuing it in like this sort of general framework of a sharded blockchain. And I still remain very skeptical of the engineering complexity of sharded blockchains. And so one of the things that we have in Cosmos is just the ability to have this notion of application-specific blockchains, of allowing blockchains to specialize while remaining connected and interwoven. So allowing complexity but specialization. And so this means that if you have a blockchain in the Cosmos that is Tamagotchi blockchain that is playing some cute collectible video game, and then you have another blockchain in the Cosmos that is a DeFi yields farming ecosystem. These things are actually isolated from each other, and the TPS or the competition for block space for one is not impeding the competition for block space for the other. And Cosmos actually provides like varying levels of security, and also sort of has this property of sort of avoiding systemic risk from one set of economic activities sort of bleeding in and affecting settlement for some others. This is, I think, probably high level, but this Internet of Blockchains mechanism, we think, is sort of a very good way of like sort of rooting scalability deeply into the architecture.
Mm-hmm. All right. And also when it comes to scalability, when it comes to like, there are lots of different aspects to it, obviously. And one of the things I was going to ask, if you mentioned working with ADAM more on the financial aspect and stuff like this, about the services, obviously. So to make cryptocurrency kind of move to wider probably usage, you need to think about the services, the infrastructure. And is there something very like interesting that we're going to see from ADAM, from Cosmos at this point?
So one of, I think, the most exciting aspects of Cosmos is the extent to which sort of our broader ecosystem of projects is evolving into sort of a real a marketplace of real resources. So you have a project like Althea, which is a sort of decentralized, distributed, community-based internet service provider that has probably thousands of people now who rely on it as their primary internet connection. And they are building, their broader vision of how do you actually build a system that competes against, the centralized ISPs and, maybe Starlink in the future. Is very driven by community ownership, community capital allocation, and so they're building a bunch of very exciting systems on top of Cosmos, including one of the Ethereum to Cosmos bridges that is sort of coming online. So there's that. There's another project in our ecosystem called Akash, built with the Cosmos SDK, that I think is another very exciting project. And that's a marketplace for just running sort of raw compute. So it's comparable to something like AWS, where you can, just pay for raw storage and execution. And it speaks essentially the Kubernetes API, which is a very sort of familiar set of developer tools for anybody who's sort of been writing programs for like sort of more conventional cloud ecosystems. But what they're providing is a way for like sort of independent data centers to actually sell their excess compute into a marketplace. So I think that those kinds of things, and I think there's more in that framework. So on one hand, I am expecting, with IBC launching, with Anchor launching, I'm expecting a lot more of the sort of financial use cases to start appearing on Cosmos. Until IBC launched, there wasn't really a mechanism for doing that, but I expect Cosmos a lot to happen in that space on the Cosmos side, in sort of the post-Stargate world of 2021. I also think that we're going to, one of the things that I think is most exciting and perhaps unique about the Cosmos ecosystem is our technology has attracted a set of use cases that are much more tied to sort of like the real world and sort of not just pure speculation. And I'm excited to see some of those come online, be connected into the broader Cosmos ecosystem. And then I think like one of the things that is sort of a really important question is how does Atoms support all of these use cases? So, the way Atoms can support something like Althea is, for instance, by helping, so they have this like sort of DeFi Ethereum peg zone that they're sort of using to build the medium of exchange on their network to have easy onboarding. But for instance, Atom holders could be leasing security to that DeFi peg zone. And I think that would be very exciting. For something like Akash, the hub could be, settlement. It could be a gateway. It could provide liquidity for assets on that network. There's just like, there's a huge set of possibilities to explore, I think, in the near future. And it's going to be very exciting to see how that all plays out.
You also mentioned the connectedness, the use cases and the connectedness of blockchain like solutions and the real world, like our common things that we all have. And do you think it's something like very major and something very important that could drive kind of more traction towards the blockchain space, being these use cases that are more usual?
I think, like I said, blockchains still have, like what I would say is so things that I find like, I think that are like good and healthy. One is, we have this architecture in which you have, and like a basic social organizational structure where you have many entities in Cosmos all looking for product market fit. And in general, the blockchain space, is best when, you're built when we are kind of like a hydra, and that, every head is kind of looking for, the next meal, and ultimately product market fit is relevant to what we're doing. I also think, in all likelihood, the place in which blockchains may find product market fit most readily is sort of as a marketplace for compute resources, whether it is bandwidth or storage or data or, training your machine learning algorithms. That seems to be like the most natural place after sort of digital gold for blockchains to play a role. And I'm broadly excited about the progress the Cosmos ecosystems have in these marketplaces forming.
Do you think, like, yeah, obviously, like data storage and management is something that blockchain is like quite closely correlated to, and digital gold obviously too. But do you think the future just development of the blockchain space will bring it further to like other aspects as well?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think one of the, the the current world of computation. I mean, like, for all we talk about decentralization, I think it's worth remembering how centralized the internet is. Um, you know, uh, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon are overwhelmingly central to just the day-to-day operation of the global internet. And it's a single company and a single capital allocation mechanism. While the world is crawling with independent data centers, there is this they are like sort of strong sort of selling points, strong coordination points, because so many developers are familiar with these cloud APIs and these cloud ecosystems. And so, if you start a company, you're like, well, where am I going to host my stuff? I'm going to run it on Amazon. But Amazon is actually also quite expensive, sort of relative to the cost of sort of raw compute. And so I think there is a real opportunity to sort of decentralize the internet while providing actual real price competition to some of these cloud providers. And that is what I'm broadly hopeful is one of it can be sort of a unique selling proposition of the blockchain space. And I'm quite enthusiastic about Cosmos, the Cosmos architecture in general, sort of playing a role in that. My sort of general perspective on the blockchain space is that the blockchain space will be best suited if sort of everything becomes more like Cosmos, sort of allows more of an Internet of Blockchains based approach, and sort of less of the world computer based approach. And so I'm sort of hoping that projects like Ethereum, et cetera, will also evolve in that direction, because we need to we all need to be sort of building on the right architecture in order for this space to survive.
Yeah, definitely. But also uh, to adopt this architecture, to start building on it, is definitely part of like all of our goal and the community goal to just spread the ideas. Do you think that it's already happening? Do you think it's kind of not yet there, or like where's the general
Um,
movement?
I think one of the biggest challenges that's happening right now is there is a lot of there is a lot of tension in the blockchain architecture space, and one of the things that I think is going to be most interesting to see is kind of how those tensions resolve. I'd say Ethereum is sort of is a little bit on one hand, you have the great work that is being done on Ethereum 2.0, but I think that a lot of people don't really aren't really as familiar with the sort of details and the architectural tensions in sort of that roadmap. Like Ethereum could quite naturally evolve into a system that is very much like Cosmos, in the sense that most transaction execution happens on rollups and side chains. Like what we think of the Ethereum blockchain is mostly a mechanism of providing, renting out security, providing transaction enforcement, collateralization, acting as a routing layer, and a data availability layer. Or it could evolve into this kind of giant world computer, sharded world computer that people have been looking forward to, and sort of is the sort of mainline Ethereum vision. And I definitely am a fan of kind of trying to bend the curve on the sort of future architectures of blockchains towards more of a Cosmos Internet of Blockchains, the separation between compute and the sort of consensus staking enforcement layers.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And actually, I wanted to probably ask you about some predictions that you might have for like generally the development of the crypto space. You kind of like mentioned a lot of things already that you think are going to happen and that are favorable to happen, but probably it's kind of like nasty question. I would like to make you one prediction for like, I don't know, 5 years, a year, you choose the time that is good and that is bad for the blockchain.
Okay. I'll give you my predictions. I don't think that there will be a decentralized. So my predictions are, we will get to the end of 2020. There will not be a decentralized proof of stake sharded blockchain running in production. I think we will get to the end of 2021, and I don't think there will be a decentralized sharded blockchain, proof of stake blockchain running in production. I think roll-ups are going to be an incredibly important architecture. I think that the biggest challenge for Ethereum 1.0 is that the sort of threat models that are in the Flash Boys Ethereum paper, which I've started talking a lot about, in terms of how something going wrong at the compute layer, like for instance, someone finding an incredibly valuable flash loan to exploit, can result in disruptions at the consensus layer as every single miner builds different forks where they were the ones who were able to realize the yield of that incredibly profitable flash loan, will become more of a concern, and that may lead to hopefully the Ethereum community be willing to kind of bend the Ethereum 2.0 roadmap in sort of more in a direction that is Cosmos-like, where you have like sort of a single chain that's focused on staking and data availability and less on just on having compute overlaid onto consensus.
Right. So we are actually getting to the kind of like a finalizing point of our interview. That's a lot of data that I have to process it right now. We need to just make a transcript and like read it all through again. This prediction does not sound like kind of super empowering, probably from the space, from the point of space, but also it's interesting to see how it actually happens. So like, I hope we're all going to stay alive until end of 2021. Like all the COVID that's happening around, like I really hope everything is going to be well. Actually, how it's been for you? This is going to be like a super out of interview question, but like how?
No, but I think yeah. I mean, so how has COVID been for me? So while, so the last 3 years, I've probably spent 50% of my time on the airplane, going to conferences, speaking, giving talks, all of this stuff. And so obviously this change to being in one place and doing a lot of talks on video and streaming and stuff like that has been a big change. I'm an introvert, and so I actually mostly like, and I'm in Palo Alto. It's beautiful here. I've really been able to enjoy the house and a lot of things that I've sort of missed out on because of the last few years of continuous travel. So that's been good. The other thing that has been good, I think, is in general, I think the blockchain space has continued to make a lot of progress. During COVID, a lot of different projects that we are working with have launched or are in the process of launching. And so the ongoing process of sort of development in the blockchain space, I think, has been not really slowed down, maybe to a certain extent enhanced. My plan, even without COVID, was to spend a lot less time on planes in 2020 than I had been spending in the last few years. And so I think all of that is good. I think it'll be nice to start, having some face-to-face interactions again next year. But, also, in the US, COVID is starting to become so, like, the US experience of COVID is starting to really diverge from most of the rest of the world, in the sense that, cases are really high here. We're all pretty locked down. I basically have like I have face-to-face interactions with like 4 people on a regular basis, and that's it. And so it's clearly going to be a challenging time. But I am thankful that I am in the blockchain space, and the blockchain space has been running so quickly and moving so fast during these COVID times that essentially every day I have a whole day's worth of work to do. So that's been nice.
Okay, it's great to hear that like the blockchain space doesn't seem to suffer that much as like the other areas do, and it's great to know that your lockdown has been like not that bad.
Well, I think one of the I think the things that are nice is that like I think if like the sort of seed of a community already exists, it's very easy to move that community on to being, and especially if that community is already somewhat online, it's been relatively easy to move that community to being fully online during COVID. It's a lot harder to, I think, bootstrap communities from zero. But one of the things that I think has been good for a lot of projects that are sort of getting off the ground during COVID is like the blockchain community is fairly sort of fungible, where people sort of move and are engaged with multiple projects at the same time. So, it's not like for another blockchain, for, whether you're launching a new blockchain, new DeFi application, or new layer 1 blockchain, or some combination of them, you do have a community that's sort of out there and ready to engage. And so I think that has been really healthy. I do think there are pieces of sort of more mainstream adoption that are just blocked until the pandemic is over. But it's good that like the space makes progress, because we still just have like sort of a lot of work to do, especially on like sort of these like social layer things, before we can confidently bring more people into the space. So and that work continues to make progress.
Yeah, certainly. And the time also will tell when we get out of all of this. Hopefully it's going to be soon, but nobody really knows. But I think that it's going to be a little bit even more developed probably from some point when everybody gets back to life. And after this period of like working remotely, building this like distinct, the crypto community, the blockchain community is already pretty distributed all over the world, but it brought even like more sense of like working together from totally like different places. So I think it's probably going to be something new for us all, and it's probably going to be pretty good. Hopefully it's good, like the pandemic is going to be over yet. So the last thing that I would like to ask you, and to kind of wrap up everything that we talked about, I would love to probably have you, this is like a traditional part, this is only second interview that we're having, but I would like it to be a traditional part, for you to give some sort of like advice to all the people who are already into the blockchain space, who are just starting, and who are probably like in somewhere not quite figured out their journey yet. So what do you think is important for them to consider?
What I would say is, really, where you want to find, the strategy that has worked best is finding 2 things. One is, and like, honestly, again, like, I feel like Cosmos has had a lot of influence on the blockchain space. Like we did Game of Stakes, which really transformed a lot of aspects of community engagement, and lots of projects have followed on with that. We showed the success of this like sort of incremental, usable pieces strategy, and I'm starting to see a lot more projects sort of start adopting that, which is, instead of shipping a monolithic vision that takes multiple years of research and development before you produce anything that anyone can use, a lot more projects are like trying to take this like ship and iterate approach to blockchain development that we sort of pioneered. So I think there's a lot of different projects that are starting to become much more accessible. I think the other thing that I think is sort of, especially for people who are software, I think there are two places that are sort of really interesting to get engaged. One is the general shift to decentralized governance is creating a bunch of sort of new skill sets and areas to specialize in. And so I think there are more people in the space who just need to start being engaged in this process of figuring out decentralized governance and making it work. And so that's a huge area to sort of get involved in. I also think that we are generally moving from sort of this research phase of blockchains where a lot of things involved were sort of protocol development, new consensus algorithms, new zero knowledge proof systems, to just raw engineering work of trying to take all these ideas and produce integrated systems that people can use. So that's probably it's a great time to learn about how different consensus protocols that are actually implemented work, what needs to be done, how to contribute, and the same thing can be true about zero knowledge space. Like, this is a great time to actually dig into how does a roll up actually get implemented, and start being able to contribute there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Would you like to add something to everything that we have said already?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here. So I'm just reminding everybody who will be watching it on YouTube very soon that we were joined today by Zaki Manian from Cosmos, building Cosmos Hub and many other things. And it's been really great pleasure having you here and chatting to you again. And definitely stay safe. We'll stay connected, and hopefully everything that you have said about Cosmos development and all the great things that we're going to do, we'll see them soon.